welcome. Thank you so much for coming on Cinema Body, Cinema Mind. I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been excited about having this chat.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, with someone like yourself who's got so much stuff out there, is so prolific, it's kind of hard to know where to start an interview. But I'm going to take the easy option and mention a note that you put out on Substack just the other day, because it kind of fitted in exactly at that moment with the way that I was feeling, and maybe it sort of opens up, something we'll probably come back to quite a lot, which is the experience of the internet. And you talk about the aesthetic experience of the internet, but to me it's more about the the embodied or the cognitive experience of the internet. And you sort of say it feels like a bunch of people yelling at me trying to get my attention, and yet you say at the end, I often didn't wish I didn't need to walk these streets to get to the interesting stuff, but you have to try and get in and get out while you can. And it's something that I'm always kind of navigating in my own mind, how much I'm online, trying to get offline and not being addicted and not checking things all the time. And also having that question of being someone who is contributing perhaps to the noise, that idea of whatever we put out, what is the value of it? What is the purpose of it? I'm just wondering, maybe what are your thoughts on that kind of conundrum,
Yeah, I mean it is a conundrum. I think I started out in this, maybe we all did, kind of naively. The internet felt like this very open, free space where I've met so many cool people through the internet. I've learned so many things and found community centered around interests that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And I've now, my job lives on the internet, but we've also seen it kind of transform into this thing where, like, attention algorithms are this kind of the defining characteristic of everything we consume on here. And yeah, there are days where, I just find myself scrolling through, a Substack notes feed is a little less offensive, but I think where I think about it the most, where that note came from is I had just been scrolling through like Instagram Reels or something, which I have a very, kind of love-hate relationship with short form video
Sure.
in particular. And sometimes literally it is not even a metaphor, just like one video will be one person yelling something, trying to grab your attention and tell you about this thing, and then you swipe and it's another person yelling, and the yelling is literally a tactic, whether it's consciously intentional or not. There's a reason Mr. Beast is yelling at the beginning of every one of his videos. He's studied exactly what grabs and retains people's attention. And so he's yelling because it's like there's something jarring about it, and it's like hard to kind of look away. But yeah, sometimes that onslaught, I'm just like, I just want to throw my phone across the room and
yeah. And
leave it all behind.
it's the psychology of the feed, isn't it? And the editing, where you can get just the most perfect kind of allusion to a film or a filmmaker that you love, and then a dog video, which
Yes, yes.
and it's just like, oh wow, that juxtaposition shouldn't work, but it kind of keeps me involved. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Sort of talking about those utopian times when the internet was going to solve all our problems, and even sort of back in Twitter days, that sort of sense that here is something that is going to connect us in new ways. I mean, I guess even you coming onto Substack, we're all still searching for that kind of environment. And I think, even now Substack is starting to change, and I'm wondering whether it's going to befall the kind of enshittification mode to the point where it'll be like, yeah, we're all going to have to move on to elsewhere. But we're all still searching for that sort of sense of, the ideal environment online, I guess.
Yeah, Substack feels different right now, I think, for a few reasons. Um, it's not primarily algorithm driven still, although the algorithm is coming in various ways.
Mm.
But I think the other thing is, like, it's not an ad based platform, like,
Yeah.
and that really, the downstream incentives for how the entire platform is structured for something that's like based on ads versus there's less of that direct incentive to just have everyone. The platform itself is not built on it makes money by holding our attention for as long as humanly possible. Um, and it's just new too. I think, the culture is young and fresh, and um, so I like those things about it right now. But yeah, it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine that if it continues to grow, it won't eventually sort of slip in the same direction that
Yeah.
every other um, platform inevitably seems to. But
Mm.
for the time being, I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you made the decision to how long have you had your Substack now? It's not that long, is it?
I think I started it like 2 or 3 years ago, but I
Right.
wasn't very intentional with it. It's only in the last, like, year or so that I've started kind of putting more intentional effort into it, writing
Right.
there and that sort of thing.
Sure. Did you consciously though, like, I mean, there could have been the decision where I've got a big audience and here's a chance to monetize more on a different stream, which is, obviously fair enough. But I wondered whether you felt that the infrastructure gave you so, I mean, did you want to write more essentially rather than just do the video essays?
That was the main draw, yeah. I mean, I write for my video essays,
Yeah, yeah, of
but,
course, of course.
those are as much an editing and video medium, obviously, as a writing medium. But writing is something I enjoy, that I've done as long as I've done filmmaking or videos, and so I wanted to hone that craft a little bit more specifically, and Substack felt like a good venue for that. But I'm also just looking for a way that allows a more direct connection with my audience. I think,
Right.
um, the YouTube has a lot of reach, and that's great. My channel's grown on there. It's great to be able to reach millions of people, but that's very impersonal, and I have no access to those people.
Mm,
It's very hard to sort of have any kind of two-way street, and I have no ownership of that audience. If
yeah, yeah, yeah.
YouTube decided, "Oop, your channel is gone tomorrow," it's like, so diversifying onto different platforms,
Of course.
is just feels like a good
Yeah.
move.
Is that kind of a quite a significant anxiety for someone who such as yourself who is now full time and has been on YouTube for a while, that there is that precarity of the algorithm or just, what YouTube might decide to promote? It's one of the things I always find with kind of being online is, trying to figure out what the algorithm is going to do, and then depending what platform you go to, you've got all these people coming on telling you, well, you now since March it's changed, so you have to start doing this, and I haven't got the patience, to kind of follow that, algorithm busting mentality. I don't know how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it is a point of stress. I try not to fixate on that too much and just make the best work that I can.
Mm,
But, when your monthly paycheck is riding on how well something performs within the algorithm, it's hard not to slip into thinking about that on some level and kind of optimizing for that, even if subconsciously. So there's a push and pull there. I try to find the ways to um, create stuff that will have reach while still honoring my own sensibility and the things that I care about. Um, and but yeah, it doesn't. It's not a good feeling to you know. I don't like. I sort of focus on making this one piece once a month, and I put that out,
right.
and how well that does. How well that does is somewhat dependent on the algorithm,
Mm,
and then my paycheck is dependent on the algorithm. So that's something I've been trying to sort of find a way to get away from,
okay.
um, and I'm slowly sort of you
Yeah, yeah,
know
yeah.
expanding outward, but also just because I love getting to make videos for YouTube, but that's not my only interest. I want to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
other things as well.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to come back to that because I want to talk about that sort of decision of how you decide what subjects and, building audiences and all that, because I'm sure people would want to hear that. And I want to talk about, some of the subjects, the content, as well as some of your videos as well. But as we do on, or as I try to get guests to talk about on this podcast all the time, I'm really interested in a kind of cinematic origin story, and particularly, the going to the cinema aspects of that rather than just films. I mean, both of them I'm interested in. So my usual first question into this is, can you remember the first time? What's your first memory of actually going to the cinema?
I'm pretty sure it was a movie I think no one remembers, I think a Disney animated film, maybe it was DreamWorks, called Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron or something.
Yeah.
It came out in 2002. I think I would have been, in 2002, I would have been 9 years old.
Wow.
Um, so pretty old, I feel like, for a first cinema experience. If there
Mm,
was any before that, I don't remember them, but there's a pretty good chance that there wasn't because I kind of grew up in the middle of nowhere in central Virginia.
okay.
Um, the closest town with a theater was like a 20-minute drive away. Um, and going to the cinema was like an incredibly rare treat.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
first one, and I probably went to like 3 or 4 more movies between 10, and then when I was, when I started being able to drive myself to the movies, that was kind in high school, and then my friends would go all the time, and that was sort of when it became more of a regular thing. But, yeah, we were like a working class family in a rural area, and going to the movies was like a big expensive treat and kind of a rare thing.
Right.
Um,
So was it movie watching at home, DVDs and stuff like that that really,
yes,
got you into
yeah.
it in a way?
A
Yeah.
lot of a lot of stuff at home, and we didn't even have television, um, so it was everything I watched was, like, a VHS or a DVD
Okay.
that
You mean
we
like
got.
broadcast television,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
cable you didn't have? Okay,
yeah,
I
we
get
had a
yeah.
TV, but
Right.
there was no cable, no broad
Wow, okay.
network or anything. Um, my parents my parents were Amish, so I'm, like, 2
Wow,
generations
okay.
removed from the Amish.
Gotcha.
So there was some holdover of that in my
Right.
upbringing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, so there was a lot of like watching the same thing over and over again, kind of obsessively, because there was like, these are the 20 movies you have access to.
Right.
And
Do you
so if you
remember
want to
any
watch them.
titles, any examples of the ones you've seen many, many times as a kid?
The one that really sticks with me a lot is It's a Wonderful Life. That was one that we watched frequently, especially around the holidays, and that's one that kind of I still look back on and I'm like, "This is just like a great movie."
Mm,
Um, there was a lot of, like, kids movies that don't really hold up anymore. We did watch a lot of, like, the classic Disney animation, 101 Dalmatians, Jungle Book, that kinda stuff, which I just like are beautiful
yeah, yeah,
pieces of
yeah,
art now, and I,
indeed.
have a real fondness for. Um, Trying to think, I mean, I'm sure I should try to make more of a catalog of this. It's funny, at that time, I wasn't a lot of people, their origin story for being a critic or a filmmaker or whatever is, I fell in love with these movies,
Mhm.
at this time. And I was certainly aware of them and interested, but my love of the medium came more out of filmmaking itself. I got
Okay.
my hands on a camera, and I wanted to make stuff, and that was really cool. And then it was almost like in reverse. I was like, "Oh, if I wanna be able to do this, I
I
should
see.
be paying attention to the movies," and then I started, thinking more heavily about that. But,
Right.
um, I think it was
Did you
the Lord. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, I was just gonna say, did you get like a camcorder at some point, like a present, or was it just picking up a friend's camera or something?
Yeah, no, my mom got me, I think, like a 3 megapixel digital video camera or something.
Yeah,
I must have been like 10 or 12 years old,
sure.
and some some cousins of mine, I had some older cousins, and they were really into, like, video stuff, and they showed me a video, how they had shot a little short film on their parents' like digital video camera, and then they loaded it into iMovie and they changed it to black and white,
Right.
and then they sped up the footage so that like they were moving and they were kind of making this like, it made it look like an old silent film.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So we would do that. We would make these little like silent movies, and we would just like speed up the footage so it looked jerky, to mimic like an old frame rate, and shoot in black and white. And that was, that was my kind of my entry point into being interested in it. Um,
Right.
and then I think we got the DVDs or whatever, the special features for the Lord of the Rings films, which I was
Okay.
obsessed with.
Right.
And that was like opened up a whole world for me. Suddenly I was like, oh, this is what filmmaking is. There's all these people and a director, and
Mm.
um but yeah,
Right.
that was really how I like fell